Okay, so yesterday we started talking about evolution, and that evolution does not really explain the origin of existence, and science really has no explanation for that. Lots of theories, lots of speculation, but there is no alternative to creation. The question, though, is with regard to evolution itself: could it be? Could it not be? And we discussed yesterday. Judaism has no problem with evolution so long as that's the way God created. He decided to create by way of evolution. We then got into time, and that as time is relative, and time before the creation of man could easily be measured differently. We're told that Hashem's time is totally different. So exactly how long these first 6 days of creation were, who knows? So we have also no problem. Whenever, if ever, you witness a debate with an evolutionist, the evolutionists, there are two main points that they use. One is that you could never prove that anything was deliberate, since anything can come out randomly. Means within randomness, anything can happen. In fact, there's some evolutionists that say that the human eye didn't evolve, it just popped up one day. We would say that's counterintuitive. So they're claiming, what do you mean? Anything can happen randomly. Yeah. But if I have to choose between something very complex being deliberate or random, what does a level-headed human being say? I mean, theoretically, a car could have been a mutation, you know? A couple of cells got together and they became a car. Can't negate that. You tell that to someone, so you're out of your mind. So the idea that randomness can bring about anything is very, very theoretical, but no level-headed human being will accept that. And then comes the next part, where they tend to scorn the Bible stories and ask you, are you level-headed? Do you believe that Balaam's donkey spoke? You really believe that the sea split? All these Torah miracles, you believe them? It was doing that. Yeah?
If we believe like the miracle that the sea split, but then science says, hey, the sea didn't split, but like there could have been like a sand bridge, and so the Israelites could have crossed the sea anyway.
We don't believe that.
We don't believe that.
We believe the sea split.
Okay.
We believe the sea split, period.
Just curious.
So I got to think about our answer, not just for the sake of the answer, but this is really a challenge to evolutionists. You see, with God, anything can happen. God can perform miracles. What's the problem? Without God, the evolution of the world being the way it is today, that all of that happened without God is far more ridiculous. That God can make a donkey talk. Why not? But that this sophisticated world, including digestion and vision, that this just came about on its own, that's far more ridiculous. And if you think otherwise, it's because you got so used to the idea that it just evolved. That means, yes, it may have evolved, but not without God. Which then brings us to one of the issues that evolutionists really have a hard time defending, and that is, there's one thing that did not evolve, and that is life itself, the first cell. The first cell, science is unaware of sort of a half cell, like all life is made of cells. This includes vegetable life. All life is made of cells. Cells that die and replenish themselves. That's what life is. By definition, that's what life is. Cells that die and replenish themselves. That's the difference between life and something that's not alive. How did the first cell come about? It did not evolve. There were no cells, and then there were cells. How did that happen? Science has absolutely no explanation for it. I mean, the first cell just appeared. It didn't happen in stages. It just appeared. Now, that defies all of probability. The concept of this cell that can die and replenish itself, grow more cells and then die out, like, how'd that happen? Where'd that come from? It didn't come from something else. Yeah, there were proteins and amino acids in it. But what made life come to be? Science does not have an answer to that. Science does not have an answer to that.
What if science says, although they don't have an answer to it, that doesn't mean there isn't a logical answer? What would we respond to it?
Well, respond fine. Just be honest and say, I don't know. Don't tell me.
They don't have some sort of theory?
There are lots of theories, but none of them have been substantiated in any way. And they all defy probability in the worst way possible. That a first cell came to be on its own. That life came to be on its own. Science has absolutely no explanation that fits with A, the probability, and B, where we've seen that happen. No cell has ever come to be from nothing. It's never happened. Why should that not have repeated itself? It happened once. Like, oh, why? And how did it, that's wild. For something to happen randomly, life came about randomly. See, everything in evolution is based on the fact that it was gradual. The only problem there with the probability is the time factor, where in order for it to be within the realm of probability, there's got to be a lot of time, which there still isn't enough. Archaeologically, the number they're at still doesn't work, but okay. A cell, there was just no explanation. There was just no explanation. For life, there was no explanation. Okay, now we move on. With regard to man, I mentioned yesterday that there were two opinions in the Rishonim way back when, and This is a very important discussion. From the Torah's description, God created man by hand and blew a soul into him. Which means that man didn't evolve. We do have lots of fossils of humanoids, of different stages of the human being's development, with varying levels of intelligence. And the question is that compatible with Torah? So Rambam already mentions that there's a machlokes between, a disagreement between Ibn Ezra and Rambam on just how to explain the verse. It says that God took dirt from the ground and turned it into man, and then blew the soul into him. Before the soul was blown into man, was he alive or not? Rambam says no, Ibn Ezra says yes. In other words, was there a live human being without a soul?
Would you be talking about like the transition from like the animal to the human element?
Yeah. In other words, did humanoids exist?
There was animals made on one day of creation, and then Hashem decided on one day.
We don't know if man was made together with the animals, and then he took one of them and blew a soul into him, or man was made from scratch.
Saying there could have been other.
There were human-like animals, and then there were all kinds of animals, and Hashem took one animal that was a humanoid and gave him a soul.
It doesn't sit right.
What?
It doesn't sit right.
But
There are two opinions.
It would
in
explain for all the findings. It would explain for that for fun.
And more than that, there is a discussion in the Mishnah over what level of human being is considered human. Apparently they were discussing some creature that was monkey-like, but looked like a human being. They're called Adnei HaSadeh, the masters of the field.
like Neanderthals?
We don't know what they were talking about, but the Mishnah says that they are not yet classified as man, although they resemble human beings.
Well,
How did Rambam define life? Like, what was their different? You were saying they were debating on it.
According to Rambam, when it says that God made man from dirt, what it means is he created a lifeless body and blew a soul into it that gave him life. According to Ibn Ezra, Hashem created the human being like all the other animals, which could have been in one step or could have been in evolution, and he was alive. And then he went and blew life and blew a neshama into the soul.
Okay.
What about the whole concept with the Chava and the rib and creating like?
Of course, we'd have to understand what that means. We'd have to understand what that means. We're not aware of Adam being missing a rib.
Okay. Well, I guess my question on that was like, if he created a female from the male, but if we're under the thought process of he picked the animals, didn't he create man and woman animals?
Yeah. The question is there something different? Is there a female humanoid? And then once he blew his soul into Adam, he had to take part of Adam's body and turn that into Eve rather than take a humanoid. In other words, Eve was not a female humanoid that Hashem blew a soul into. Her body was taken from Adam, and then he blew a soul into that. So there were female humanoids, But the female of Adam after soul, that was made in.
Blew another soul into evil. Don't they share a soul?
So that's a question. There's really two axes.
What does the Rambam say on this Mishnah, Mishnah talking about the masters of the field?
He just tells us that they exist, that they exist or existed. They existed. He just tells us where it came from.
But also, like before the sin of the apple, like they said that the human body or the human form was not the same as it is.
It was not
today.
the form. It was much finer. It's much finer. That's a whole different kind of discussion. But the idea that there was a gap between the creation of the physical human being versus being given the soul, this is an old discussion. Not only that, Ramban claims that Onkelos in his Aramaic translation of the Torah makes it sound like it was really in two stages. Now Onkelos was alive in the days of the Mishnah. He was a student of Rabbi Elazar, the days of the Mishnah. Which means what we're talking about is around the time of the destruction. It's way back when, and they really were those who held that they were humanoids. So we have no problem with that. The question is the evolution of intelligence. What were humanoids capable of doing without a soul? According to archaeologists, they were capable of creating pottery, which means that they had a certain amount of intelligence above the other animals. Monkeys don't make pottery. Pottery means taking clay and firing it in a kiln. Or they didn't have kilns in those days, at least they had fire. Which means those humanoids had a certain amount of intelligence that you don't need a soul for.
I would say that there are some humanoids these days that are becoming souls. Hamas thinks probably want a soul.
They're human beings.
Without a soul.
Unfortunately. Perhaps, but they're human beings.
Wouldn't the humans have domesticated the humanoids the same way they do all other animals, and we continue to have those humanoids?
That's a big question. What happened to the humanoids after the creation of Adam? After Adam got a soul, what happened to the humanoids? Why did they die? Why were there no humanoids left? And I mean, that's a real question.
I feel like I see a lot of similarities between like that and like the historic like Neanderthal, like they're closely related and they could use tools but then they died out.
We don't know. But what we do know is something very interesting. Back to Onkelos' translation, it says that after the soul was blown into him, he became a living spirit. Onkelos translates that to mean he was a talking spirit. It's very interesting. Human beings articulate. There's one of the principal differences. All animals communicate, they don't articulate. They don't have the ability to express things the way we do in words with all the nuances and all the different words. They can basically communicate. Obviously, we can't find the words that were said way back when. But the first hieroglyphic-like images, which were definitely communicating ideas in words, those coincide with our dating of Adam after he got his soul. What we're talking about is something like 6,000 years, not more.
First hieroglyphics are around the same time of our dating of Adam.
Yeah.
So they could have been humanoids before, during this.
Which means that making pottery does not need a soul.
But writing does.
Yeah, writing does. By the way, an alphabet, the first alphabet is Semitic, and it appears at the time of the revelation at Sinai.
I was in Spain, and there was a cave that was hollowed out because it was like limestone, and it's pretty much pitch black in there, and it's been there for like 100,000 plus years, but they have markings on the walls that indicates from like 30,000 years ago. So like, how would that necessarily?
I don't know what those markings are. I have no idea. I have no idea.
I'll see if I can like find a.
See if you can find that, because the hieroglyphic-like stuff that they find all over the place is about 6,000 years old. We're not talking about anything older than that.
Well, if these humanoids existed since the time that animals were created, they could have been around billions of years.
Animals are not billions of years old, by the way.
Well,
The dating of 15 billion, which today is a lot more, is referring to the universe. It's not referring to the Earth. The Earth's a lot younger. The Earth's younger, and life on Earth, according to the evolution, is a lot younger.
we say that the 6 days were a lot longer. Than
So we're a lot longer. We don't know how long they were. We do not know.
These humanoids could have been dating back a lot longer.
Sure.
Which can explain the pottery being found.
Of course.
Markings being found.
Yeah.
Were the 6 days equal in length, or could day 1 way longer than day 5?
We have no clue. We have no clue.
Taken.
So all in all, in terms of what creation looked like, we have no problem with any of that stuff. The one difference is, did this happen on its own, or is this the work of God? Aside from the fact that logic dictates that in order for existence to exist, the infinity must exist, the issue of probability makes creation really so much more logical than the prospect of evolution without creation having taken place. So both for logical reasons as well as for reasons of probability, it is clear to us that the world was created, that there is a creator. In which case we will have to address the issue of what is the purpose of creation, which is completely avoided if it was all an accident, if it just happened. Okay.